Podcaster scamming past came back to haunt him. Now, I ain't gonna lie, Rich on the Unemployed podcast is a podcast I used to listen to heavy back in 2023. We in big 25 right now, so it's been a while since I heard from bruh. But it's kind of crazy to see this title. T-Riddle.
Dang, bro, it's so sad to find out Jay Stu's biggest hero.
Alright, chill out, fool.
See,
Listen to the nigga for 1 year, gang.
you got the glasses on.
This man went from starting a successful podcast that gave men financial advice to currently being incarcerated for horrifying financial crimes. His name is Finesse, and he's the founder of the Rich and Unemployed podcast. The podcast he started back in 2022, shortly after he got released from prison. Naming yourself Finesse and starting a podcast called Rich and Unemployed after being released from prison probably isn't the best sign that you have turned over a new leaf from your scamming ways. But credit to him, he was at least open with his past. He never hid that he was just in jail for financial crimes. He never hid it. He was always honest about it.
Yeah,
and his
that's
message ultimately was a good message for men.
He was moving
now,
on
it was
past
the wrong messenger, but the message itself was a message you really can't argue with.
People come up on money all the time and fall off quick as hell. And why is that? It's because discipline. People lack discipline. Men in general lack discipline. How can you become successful in life? How can you, get further in life if you can't discipline yourself to, control money? And it's not even just about money. You have to control yourself in a few areas.
At some point, he made a pivot just from giving men advice to doing more red pill content, interviewing women, telling them how they're delusional. And with that content comes toxicity, and people will pull up his past criminal history and use it against them. But for the most part, he was pretty honest, right? He would openly talk about going to jail for fraud at some point, but he would say he's not a scammer. He would never categorize himself as a scammer. He would just say he did something a scammer would do in the past.
So I created the brand, and the idea came from my past life, which was...
That's why I think he was so authentic, bro.
And while I was sitting in prison, I didn't want to be known as a scammer.
It's
because
crazy,
I'm not a scammer.
dog.
And I was just trying to find different ways to articulate myself. And
This is why I say, man, you gotta be one of the niggas that can smooth talk, my nigga. I'm not gonna lie. Because the niggas like this, you think it started, whole time they running the whole illegal operation.
But if you pay attention to what he's saying, you will notice that he's still a scammer.
Yeah.
Because he using a whole bunch of alphabet soup, saying that he wasn't a scammer, he was whatever. You feel me? Just say what you was, nigga. Stop going around it. That proves that you're a scammer.
Yes, man.
Express myself. But so it was Finesse's Only Club. It was Rich and Unemployed. I also had Fraud, which is Finally Rich After Unstoppable Determination.
See, you still use the
I'm just bouncing off
acronyms and shit.
like ideas of, the life I used to live. And
you hear what he
So
say?
in the life
Bouncing
that
off the
you used to
dead.
live, were you a scammer then?
no. I did something that a scammer would do, but I finessed the situation.
I ain't a cheater. I just did something that a cheater would do.
Yeah. So
No, he was a scammer, and a pretty good one at that, to be honest. Because what we saw, whenever this dude did commit a scam or a crime, he did it in the largest scale possible. One day while he was walking past his local corner store, he saw this sticker that gave him a brilliant idea. And the sticker says, "We accept EBT." When he seen that sticker, it was like a light bulb just went up in his mind. See, even though he was down bad at the top, he was still not going to engage in low-level criminal activities like running in a corner store and robbing it for some change. He wanted a way to make a larger income. He wanted a way to make something substantial that would be worth all the effort. He wanted he wanted a grocery store that would cater and accept customers with EBT, so he could essentially receive a guaranteed income and a guaranteed check because the government is going to be funding everything. But he had an issue. He didn't have a store and he didn't have any customers. At that moment, he decided I would just create the store and create the customers, and the government will fund the entire operation. He created an LLC for a grocery store that didn't exist called J Goods Grocery. He even registered the grocery store at a physical location that it was not located at, and then he applied to accept EBT for his grocery store that did not exist. Once the government approved his application to accept EBT at this grocery store that don't exist, he then had another issue in mind. I don't have the customers. Because usually when customers give you money, they're expecting goods in return. And because the grocery store didn't exist, he had no goods. So he had to find a solution for that particular problem, and he did. His solution for this problem was to be his own customer. So he went on to obtain people's personal information unlawfully.
So you gonna do all this? Why not just fucking make the grocery store game? I don't get it. Why not just make the grocery store? And then at least you can just look like you're just fishing the money through, but at least you have a physical location that you're paying rent on. Yeah, you have some overhead costs, but the money you're peeling up off the back end is still profit.
Yeah.
I'm saying, and you can still be your own customer to spend groceries in your own goddamn grocery.
He don't want to spend the money on the front end. He got too greedy. He wanted straight profit. That is the problem with a lot of scammers, bro. They get too greedy and they want everything.
Yeah.
You just gotta get in to get out, bro.
Facts.
Apply for an EBT card under those people's personal information, and once the EBT cards was accepted, he would have the EBT cards mailed out to a physical location and pick it up from that location. Once in possession of the EBT card, he would use a payment processor to essentially have the EBT cards in his possession, pay for products that don't exist from a grocery store that don't exist.
Damn.
And the government would give him real money in exchange. And this man thought he discovered the wheel. In hindsight, whatever he was doing sounded really brilliant and it worked really well, but it wasn't a new idea or a new scam. Others have attempted this in the past and it never ended well for them. Now, in the meantime, though, he was making so much money and it was working so well for him that he had his sister create her own fake grocery store, and they began to run it up with her store as well. Just like most crimes targeting the federal government, they eventually figured out what was going on and they shut it down and arrested everybody involved. Him and his sister were both arrested. The problem came in because when people went to apply for their actual EBT card, they were told they already had an EBT card under their name. Or when taxes came around and people realized, like their tax was being like siphoned off for things they quote unquote owed to SNAP, they was confused. He ultimately defrauded the government out of $395,000. Him and his sister were both sentenced to jail. He received 3 years in prison and she received 6 months. When you have to sit in a prison cell for 3 years, you do a lot of reflecting. You have to sit with yourself. You have to look yourself in the eyes in that mirror and really think about all the bad decisions you made. And for most people, you change after prison. Not for Jonathan, though. After 3 years of reflecting, man, bro got out of prison and he ain't learned a goddamn thing. He got released from prison in early 2020 in the early stages of the pandemic. And it was like an entirely new world. There was so much money out here to scam for that he couldn't resist. But he told himself he was going to hit one more lick. He was going to do one more scam just to get himself some startup money after being released from prison, and then move on to a completely legit life. Whatever scam he participated in after being released from prison, we don't find out what scam he participated in until a little later in this video when everything come crashing down. But whatever scam he participated in made him enough, made him millions of dollars to where he was able to not just have some real money to restart his life after prison, but he was wealthy. He was incredibly wealthy. And he decided that he was done scamming. He was done with crime. And he was going to move on and start a legit business and a legit brand and really try to make something of this money that he essentially scammed from the government. He started the Rich and Unemployed Company, which was a clothing company as well as a media company. He had the Rich and
Because I was literally wondering how this nigga got so much capital to start the way he was talking. Like, you remember, I ain't gonna lie, I'm gonna be honest. Me and T-Raw, we went in and we did a little media seminar class this nigga was hosting at the time, because we had the podcast. And some of the shit he was talking about, I'm like, this nigga had capital to start this shit. How did he get this capital? You know what I'm saying? Because you could kind of tell from his growth, it wasn't 100% organic.
Yeah.
He was paying ads.
Right.
But it's like, you can't argue because it's the same as, all right, it's the same as like, all right, let's say we wait on YouTube to push our video, right? That's organic growth. We know for certain that the people who come in from watching our video because they seen it through YouTube, they're gonna stick with us. Like y'all who watch, y'all fucking with it so far, y'all probably gonna stick with us for the long run. But then you got people who pay for ads. They just want to get it in front of as many eyes as possible.
Yeah.
So if I get in front of 1 million eyes and 100K people said, "Oh, I actually like bruh shit," yeah, it doesn't look good on YouTube right away, but over time, because you got 100 people, that's your 1%. You know, you pulled away from that 1 million impressions. Over time, that compounds and compounds and compounds. After a while, you won't be paying for ads no more because you know you'll get a 5K, 6K, 7K, and then it just compound. You just start thinking about just dropping.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So sometimes ads can help boost off a start. It's just niggas like me and T-Raw, we just trying to do this organically. You feel me?
For sure.
Floyd merch, but he also had the podcast to come along with it. And with the money he had, the podcast quality was crispy from day one. And he was able to book a lot of big time guests like Tommy Lee from Love and Hip Hop. And his podcast was gaining a lot of attraction. And he was also able to work his way into huge collabs. After scamming his entire life, he finally had a legit business. He finally had a business he could make money from legally and sleep easy at night without worrying about going to jail. And he was determined because his podcast was taking off and he was making a lot of money from merch and other things. He didn't want to go back to crime, and he completely left the life of crime. He was 100% legit. His last documented crime was April of 2021. So that would mean he would live a life of crime-free for 4 years. So after seeing how unproblematic and stress-free a legal life is, he was motivated to preach that message and tell other men to go completely legit and leave behind illegal businesses because they came with nothing but stress. And he made it his mission to essentially like spread that message and preach it. And he would do so in every big collab he did.
Close us out with a word. I want you to speak specifically to a person who is a previous version of themselves. And right now they're on the fence. They're 1 foot in of achieving or going for a better life. And they're could be going 1 foot back into their not so great life. They could be going back to prison. They could be going back to the street life. They can be going back to the strip club. They can be going back to something that doesn't serve them. Talk to that person, give them some advice on what you would do.
I would say, man, listen, the same amount of energy that it takes to do any illegal activities, it's the same amount of energy that it takes to do legal things. I've been on both sides of the field, and I've learned that doing those type of things, you'll never really be comfortable. You'll really never be satisfied. And to have to look over your shoulder, that's terrifying for me. I can't live that life no more. So you need to look at your life and see where you want to be and what you're doing right now. Is it taking me there? I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what you're into, but you have a bigger purpose. You know, I found my purpose, you know, in a place where, you know, some people may not ever go, but I had to go through that to get here. And you're gonna have to go through a lot of bullshit in life to get where you're trying to get to.
Being 4 years removed.
Not true. Not true. You are the subject of what you tell yourself your story is going to be. You think you got to go through a lot, you're going to go through a lot. But if you believe that you already got something, you got it. Shit, we already got 1 million subs, bro. Real talk. Just because it doesn't show in the physical doesn't mean that we don't have it. We got it.
Sure.
From doing crime. Bro thought he was in it clear. He thought he was scotch free. He thought he got away with the perfect crime. He's about to live legal and enjoy his life. but it didn't work out like that. Our past is always going to come back to haunt us, and that's what happened to him. See, he scammed at a scale so large that the government never stopped investigating how these people got away with $10 million. He was involved in a crime that scammed unemployment for $10 million. A year after scamming the government's unemployment system for $10 million, this man started a podcast called Rich and Unemployed. Now, this is self-snitching at levels we ain't never seen before. This is like the most deceptive, coy, slick self-snitching. Can you imagine being them federal agents, man? And you start to put things together and you start to investigate him and think he might be involved in this scam. And then you look at his podcast name and it said Rich and Unemployed. Man, you probably say, yeah, he did it. Yep, no, he did it. He's a prime suspect. So he used a mix of his past crimes to actually pull off the ultimate scam to finesse unemployment out of $10 million. In his first indictment, he showcased that he knew how to obtain people's identities unlawfully. He carried over this skill to this new scam to make his bazillion dollars. So the scam started July 15th of 2020, and the defendants began their scheme to defraud the California EDD. Pay attention, California EDD. He's in Georgia. By obtaining personal information, names, date of births, and social security numbers of unwitting individuals through unknown means. July 27th of 2020, the defendants, along with others, electronically submitted fraudulent UI applications to the California EDD via the internet. These applications used the stolen information of unwitting individuals without their knowledge or authorization. The applications falsely claimed eligibility for UI benefits, including misrepresenting CV-19 related reasons for unemployment. They used a VPN to mask the originating IP address, concealing the computers used to submit the fraudulent claims. They would also apply for the unemployment in their own names as well, knowing they aren't residents of California. But the thing is, especially during that time, there was like a quota that needed to be made. Like the quota was, bro, y'all need to process so many applications because people needed their money fast. So a lot of these scams were going undetected at the time because people were just pushing applications through trying to meet that quota. So these dudes made a mistake because they also applied for the unemployment in their own name, and they sent their debit cards to addresses that 300 other debit cards were sent to as well. After the fraudulent applications were approved, the defendants will update the claimant information to redirect debit cards to addresses in the Northern District of Georgia. Now, over 300 debit cards were mailed to various addresses with anywhere between $19,200 to $20,000 listed on the debit card. So 300 times 20,000 is $6 million off the rip. However, the feds believe that they were able to scam up to $10 million. I can't begin to think what the audacity of thinking I can scam $10 million from the feds and thinking I won't get caught feels like. I don't have that level of confidence or audacity, right? You have to know you're getting caught at some point, right? At some point. Now, the debit cards came over $6 million. Now, the reason why $6 million were able to go through at the time was because quotas were trying to be made, bro. There was no verification process. But 4 years.
That being said, man, sometimes you got to count your blessings when things don't work out.
Later, with Doge and all the audits down, they're going through all these applications and they're combing through every fine detail. And when they look at California EDD, $6 million got sent to Georgia, huh? That's how he got swept. And 4 years later, they finally caught him in 2025 is when they arrested him. Now, this is like the early stages of this particular indictment. He just got arrested. So right now, we don't know the outcome. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know who's snitching. Bro. But if he's not snitching, then he's effed because the government already filed a protection order to protect the witnesses and the rats in this case, bro. So the government further requests an order stating that defendant, his counsel, and members of the defense team may show but not provide copies of any unredacted discovery to witnesses. I wonder who the witnesses will be in this case. I would assume his co-defendants are. His life is over, man. Like, bro, you already did 3.5 years for one fraud case. They're about to give you 10 for this, bro, because millions of dollars from the government ain't gonna be something small. You're gonna do over 10 years. I'm assuming closer to like 15 to 20 for this one. Now he did do a podcast from prison.
Didn't have to
and
be
honestly,
like this.
from this podcast from prison, it doesn't really feel like he quite understand the gravity of what's going on because he's still interested in publicity or wanting to speak.
This man did AI.
I know this is a surprise, and I'm surprised as well. But I mean, it's what I say.
You picked up that he put the fucking prison jumpsuit number on his damn suit.
Yeah.
You see, if you had went silent, bro, you'd have the fans, because nobody's gonna want to support you in this position here. Gang, when you was out and you was preaching that real motivational shit, that's what got niggas like me. You know what I'm saying? Because I done came from a turbulent past like that. So it's like, oh shit, boy. And you know what I'm saying? Who gives a fuck if he was paying for it? He was doing it. You know what I'm saying? Fast forward, it just looked like some hypocrite shit. Nigga, he was just talking a good game. Crazy.
It's fortunate, and
You not tuning into this.
Probably a lot of people are disappointed, shocked, which I am too. Life must go on.
Hey, listen, man, that's the realest you can keep it, man. Hey, shit happens, man. Life goes on, bro. But yeah, the podcasting career, I don't think it could thrive from prison, man. We've seen a few people try to do like prison podcasts, like Suge Knight and others. Yeah. It never works out, man. Y'all let me know in the comment section. What do you guys think about this, man? Do you guys still believe he could have a thriving podcast career, even if he does 10 years in prison? Let me know.
Yeah, that shit over with.
Yeah, bro. It's over with, bro. This is what I say, man. Can't be out here scamming your fans, bro, because when some shit go down like this, bro, you get locked up, people just gonna keep living their everyday life, bro. Niggas not even they might think about you here and there, but ain't too many people gonna stick with you throughout this situation, bro. So our boy just gotta be legit, man.
Talk. Yes, man, y'all made it to the end of another video. Y'all already know, man. I love y'all, grateful for y'all, man. Y'all already know. Go ahead and catch us streaming. You know, we stream Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Right now, the shit a little dead, but you already know, man. We just Saturday. Catch us next Saturday, man. We trying to up the viewers up to 30, man.